Adrian stood on the balcony of his seaside villa, watching the waves crash against the rocks below. The salty breeze brushed against his face, carrying with it the memories of every sacrifice he had made to build this place. 10 years of hard work, countless nights away from home, every paycheck saved to make this dream real. This villa was more than a house. It was his symbol of freedom, a reward for the years he spent struggling alone in a foreign land. But the peace of that morning didn't last long. His phone buzzed on the table, displaying his mother's name. He smiled faintly before answering, expecting the usual warm greeting. But her voice trembled. "Adrian, we had to do something. Please don't be angry." His chest tightened. "What do you mean, Mom?" A silence stretched through the line before she whispered, "We sold your villa." Adrian froze. The words hit him like cold water. "What did you just say?" he demanded. His heart raced as he waited for her to deny it, to tell him it was a mistake. But instead, his father's voice joined in, firm and unapologetic. "Your sister was in trouble. She owed a lot of money, and we couldn't let her life fall apart. We sold the villa to pay off her debt." For a moment, Adrian couldn't speak. His mind spun, trying to make sense of what he just heard. His villa, the home he had poured his life into, sold without his permission. He walked back inside, pacing across the marble floor. "You had no right," he said through clenched teeth. "That house was mine. I worked for it. You didn't even ask me." His father sighed heavily. "You're being selfish, Adrian." Clara was desperate. The collectors were threatening her. "We did what any parent would do. Selfish." The words stung like a slap. For years, Adrian had watched his sister Clara make reckless choices. She chased expensive hobbies, borrowed money she couldn't return, and lived as if consequences didn't exist. When she failed, she always had their parents to clean up the mess. Adrian had helped her before, twice in fact. But he had set boundaries this time. He wanted her to learn. And now his parents had crossed the one line he thought they never would. He tried to stay calm. "You could have talked to me. I would have found another way." His father's tone grew sharp. "We didn't have time to wait for your approval. You're always busy with work, always distant. We had to act quickly. Clara needed us." Adrian stared at the floor, his pulse pounding. The irony was unbearable. He had worked himself to exhaustion so that his parents would never have to struggle again. Every month, he sent money home. He never complained, never asked for anything in return. And now, they had taken from him as if his effort meant nothing. "Who did you sell it to?" he asked quietly. There was hesitation. Then his mother answered, "Mr. Lang, you know him, your father's friend. He offered a good price." Adrian felt his throat go dry. Mr. Lang, a businessman who always sniffed around for underpriced property. "A good price," he repeated. "Do you even know how much this place is worth?" His mother started to cry. "Adrian, please. We didn't want to do this. But Clara was begging us. She said she would lose everything. We just wanted to help." Adrian's jaw tightened. He hung up without saying another word. The phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor, echoing through the empty room. He stood there, staring at the sea, his thoughts spiraling. Betrayal wasn't a sharp pain. It was slow, heavy, and suffocating. He remembered the first day he bought this villa. The realtor had handed him the keys, and he'd walked through the echoing rooms with tears in his eyes. It was the first thing in his life that truly belonged to him. And now it was gone. Not stolen by strangers, but by the very people he trusted most. By evening, the sky turned crimson. Adrian sat on the sand, knees drawn up, watching the sun sink into the horizon. The sea looked endless, but for the first time it brought him no comfort. His phone rang again and again, but he ignored it. His father's words replayed in his mind. "Family comes first." But what about him? Wasn't he family too? Why did his sacrifice never matter? Every favor, every late-night call for help, every dollar he sent home, it all meant nothing. The realization cut deeper than the betrayal itself. His parents didn't see him as a son with a life of his own. He was a resource, someone to fix their mistakes, someone who didn't get to say no. The next morning, he packed a small bag and left town without telling anyone. He needed space to think. He needed air. He drove for hours, the sound of the road filling the silence in his head. He stopped only when he reached a small motel miles away. There, he sat in the dark, replaying everything. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about a house. It was about respect, or rather, the lack of it. His parents had always favored Clara, always made excuses for her. When he achieved something, it was expected. When she failed, it was not her fault. He had ignored it for years, telling himself family mattered more than fairness. But this time, something inside him broke. They had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. That night, he opened his laptop and searched property records. It was true. The villa had been sold for half its market value. Mr. Lang had gotten a bargain, and his father had made it easy. He closed the laptop and sat in silence, his reflection staring back at him from the dark window. He thought of Clara, her laughter, her carelessness, the way she always found a way to escape consequences. Maybe she didn't even realize the damage she caused. Maybe she did and didn't care. Either way, Adrian knew one thing. He couldn't just move on. He had to do something. But what? For days he stayed in that small motel, avoiding calls and messages. His parents sent voicemails full of apologies and justifications. "You'll understand one day," his father said. "We did it for the family." His mother pleaded for forgiveness, saying she hoped they could be a family again. Each message made him angrier. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry that he found out. On the 5th day, he drove back to the city. He didn't go home. He went straight to his bank, then to the property office. He wanted to see every document, every signature. The papers confirmed it. His father had legally sold the villa using a power of attorney. Adrian had signed years ago to help with paperwork while he was abroad. That trust had been turned into a weapon. Adrian left the office feeling hollow. Trust, that simple word, felt meaningless now. He sat in his car gripping the steering wheel, his jaw tight. The ocean wasn't far. He drove there instinctively, parking near the cliffs that overlooked the shore. The same waves that once gave him peace now felt mocking. He stayed there until nightfall, thinking of everything he had lost, not just a home, the belief that family always stood by you. That illusion was gone. Somewhere deep inside, a new resolve formed. He wouldn't shout, he wouldn't beg, he wouldn't cry anymore. They had taken something precious from him. And they would learn what it felt like to lose something too, not through anger, but through silence, distance, and control, as he drove away from the shore. The night sky stretched endlessly above him. His heart was heavy, but his mind was clear. Revenge wasn't just about striking back. It was about balance, making them understand the cost of what they had done. And as the waves crashed in the distance, Adrian made a silent promise to himself. They thought they had ended his story by selling his home, but this was only the beginning. Adrian didn't go back home after learning the truth. He rented a small apartment in the city. Nothing fancy, just a quiet space where he could think. The anger inside him didn't fade. It only grew colder, sharper. He replayed the betrayal in his mind again and again. But now, instead of feeling helpless, he began to think clearly. Revenge, he realized, didn't have to be loud. It could be calm, patient, and precise. His parents had taken something irreplaceable from him. But they had also given him something in return, a reason to see who they truly were. He started by gathering information. Through his old contacts in real estate, Adrian discovered the truth about the sale. The villa had been sold to Mr. Lang for less than half its real value. His father had signed the papers using the power of attorney Adrian had trusted him with years ago. Mr. Lang had already started renovations, planning to flip the property for profit. To him, it was just another business deal. To Adrian, it was the theft of his life's work. Still, he didn't confront anyone right away. He knew anger without control would destroy everything. So he began to plan in silence. He started with Clara. His sister had always been the center of every family problem. The one who caused chaos, but was still treated like a victim. Adrian found out she had started a small business recently. one funded by the very money his parents got from selling the villa. She was proudly posting pictures online, talking about her new chapter, acting as if nothing had happened. That made Adrian's blood boil. He didn't want to ruin her out of spite. He wanted her to understand the pain of losing everything the same way he had. Adrian had quietly supported some of her earlier projects before using his influence to help her get small investors. Now he reached out to a few of those same investors privately. Calmly and professionally, he warned them that Clara's business wasn't stable, that she had debts and a history of bad decisions. He didn't lie, he simply revealed what they had ignored before. Within weeks, the whispers began to spread in business circles. Investors started pulling out, orders slowed down. Clara's business, which had barely started, began to crumble. While that unfolded, Adrian focused on his parents. He didn't call them, didn't visit, didn't reply to their messages. His silence was heavier than any argument. They didn't know where he was living or what he was doing. Weeks passed before his mother finally sent a message, "Please come home. We miss you." He didn't respond. For the first time in his life, he let them feel what it was like to be ignored, to be unimportant. During those quiet weeks, he worked harder at his job, climbing higher in his company. Every night after finishing work, he would sit in the dark thinking about the sea, the waves, the house, and the people who had taken it from him. Sometimes he questioned himself. Was he going too far? But then he remembered his father's voice, cold and dismissive, calling him selfish. That memory hardened him again. One afternoon he visited his lawyer, a calm, middle-aged man named Harris. "I want to know if there's any legal way to challenge the sale," Adrian said. Harris reviewed the documents and sighed. "You signed the power of attorney, Adrian. Technically, your father didn't break the law, but morally, he crossed the line." Adrian nodded slowly. He had expected that answer. He didn't need legal justice. He wanted moral justice. He started to build it quietly. Without telling his family, he began investing in several local projects near his old town, small shops, shipping businesses, and even the land adjacent to his old villa. Bit by bit, he surrounded the place that had once been his. It wasn't about profit. It was about control, the quiet kind that no one noticed until it was too late. Months passed. Clara's business had completely failed. She tried reaching him several times, leaving messages filled with excuses and half-hearted apologies. Adrian ignored them all. His parents finally managed to track him down and showed up unannounced at his office one day. His father looked older. His mother's eyes were tired. "Adrian," his father said, forcing a smile, "we know you're upset, but this silence is tearing us apart." Adrian looked at them calmly. "You tore it apart when you sold my home." His father's smile faded. "We did what we had to do. You'll understand one day." Adrian leaned back in his chair, voice steady. "I already do. You chose convenience over trust. You sold your son's home to cover your daughter's mistakes, and you expected me to thank you for it." His father's expression hardened. "She's your sister. You think money is more important than family?" Adrian stood up. "Family doesn't sell what you've worked your whole life for. Family doesn't betray your trust. You didn't save Clara, you destroyed what was left of us." His voice was calm, but his words hit like steel. His mother started crying softly, reaching for his hand. He stepped back. "I wish you well," he said, his tone final. "But from now on, I live my life alone." They left his office in silence, and as the door closed, Adrian exhaled. For the first time since everything happened, he didn't feel anger, just exhaustion. He had thought this confrontation would make him feel better, but it didn't. The emptiness inside him grew heavier. That night, he drove back to the coastline. The villa lights glowed in the distance, but it wasn't his anymore. Through the window, he saw strangers living inside, laughing around the dinner table. The sound of their voices carried through the night air, and something inside him cracked. That laughter used to be his. He sat in his car for hours, watching from afar, the waves echoing softly behind him. For a moment, he imagined storming in, telling them the truth, reclaiming what was his. But then he realized even if he did, it wouldn't bring back what he had lost. His parents' betrayal had done more than take his home. It had taken his sense of belonging. The next morning, Adrian made a decision. He wouldn't waste his life chasing revenge forever. But before letting go completely, he wanted them to understand the weight of what they had done, not through punishment, but through loss. He started preparing to leave the country. He had received a promotion at work, a chance to manage an overseas branch. It was everything he had once dreamed of. Before leaving, he sent one last message to his parents. "I'm leaving. I won't be coming back. Don't worry about me. Take care of Clara." A few hours later, his father called again and again, but Adrian didn't answer. He knew what they wanted to say. They would apologize now, not because they regretted what they did, but because they were afraid of losing him. 2 weeks later, Adrian boarded a flight overseas. As the plane lifted off, he looked out the window at the fading coastline below. Somewhere near that shore stood the villa that once symbolized his dreams. Now just a memory. But revenge had already done its work. His parents were broken by guilt. Clara had lost everything she'd gained through betrayal. And Adrian, though still scarred, had reclaimed his power. He no longer needed to shout, no longer needed to punish. His silence had done what words could never do. In his new apartment abroad, he sat by the window overlooking another sea. It wasn't the same, but the sound of the waves still reminded him of home. Some nights he thought about calling them, then stopped. The anger was fading, replaced by something heavier. The realization that revenge doesn't fix what's broken. It just creates new cracks. Still, he couldn't forgive them, not yet. Maybe not ever. But he could move forward. And that, he realized, was the best revenge of all. To live better than the people who tried to destroy his peace as the sun set over the horizon. Adrian whispered to himself, "They took my home, but they'll never take who I've become." The waves outside his window rolled endlessly. And for the first time in months, Adrian allowed himself to breathe. The storm inside him wasn't gone, but it was finally starting to quiet down. A year passed since Adrian left the country. He had built a quiet, disciplined life in a small coastal city far from home. His new apartment overlooked the sea, and sometimes, when the waves crashed against the shore, he was reminded of his old villa, the place that had once meant everything to him. But he never allowed himself to linger on those memories for long. He had built walls inside his heart, strong enough to keep the past locked away. Work filled his days. He had become a respected project manager in his company, known for his focus and calm nature. To his colleagues, he was the perfect professional, quiet, steady, unshakable. But behind that calmness was a man still fighting his own storm. Revenge had brought him a strange kind of satisfaction, but not peace. The silence he gave his family had punished them, yet it had also isolated him. Then, one evening, as he sat by his window with a cup of tea, his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something inside him knew before he answered. He pressed the phone to his ear. "Adrian?" It was Clara's voice, weak, shaky, nothing like the confident tone she once had. He said nothing for a few seconds. "Clara," he finally said. "Why are you calling me?" Her voice trembled. "I didn't know who else to call." "Everything's gone, Adrian. The business, the house, the car. I have nothing left." She paused, and he could hear her trying not to cry. "Mom and Dad? They're not doing well either. Dad lost his job last month. They've been fighting every day. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything." Adrian stared out at the dark ocean, his heart heavy. A part of him had waited for this call, the moment when she would finally realize what her actions had cost. But now that it had come, it didn't feel like victory. It felt empty. "What do you want me to say, Clara?" he asked quietly. "I don't want anything," she said quickly. "I just wanted you to know I understand now. You were right. I was selfish. I took everything for granted, and I ruined everything for all of us." Her words hung in the air, heavy and sincere. Adrian didn't reply right away. He could hear her soft sobs through the phone, and for the first time in years he didn't feel anger toward her. He felt pity. She had finally fallen from the world she built on lies and comfort. After a long pause, he said, "Clara, you need to fix your life, not apologize to me." "I can't," she whispered. "I've tried. I don't even know where to start anymore." Something inside him softened. The voice that had once filled him with resentment now sounded lost, human. "Start with honesty," he said. "Stop pretending to be fine. Admit what you've done to yourself and to them." She sniffled. "Will you ever forgive me?" Adrian closed his eyes. The old hymn would have said no. But time had changed him. The silence, the loneliness, it had forced him to understand that revenge doesn't erase pain. It just mirrors it. "Maybe one day," he said quietly, "but not today." After that call, Adrian couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the moonlight shimmer on the sea. For months, he had believed that walking away had set him free. But hearing Clara's voice made him realize that the past wasn't gone. It was still a shadow following him everywhere. He thought about his parents growing older and weighed down by guilt. He thought about his father, who had always believed he was doing the right thing, even when it caused pain. 3 days later, he booked a flight home. He told no one. He just packed a bag and left, unsure if he was ready for what he would find. When he arrived, the city felt smaller than he remembered. The streets, once familiar, now felt distant. He took a taxi straight to his parents' house. The yard was overgrown and the paint on the gate had started to peel. He hesitated at the door before knocking. A few seconds later, his mother opened it. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Adrian?" He managed a small smile. "Hi, Mom." She broke into tears, hugging him tightly. "You came back," she whispered. "You really came back." Inside, the house looked worn and quiet. His father sat on the couch, staring at the TV that wasn't even turned on. When he saw Adrian, he stood up slowly. His voice cracked. "You're home." Adrian nodded. The tension in the room was heavy, but calm like a storm that had already passed. They sat together for a long time without speaking. Finally, his father said, "I know nothing I say can fix what we did, but we never meant to hurt you. We thought we were saving your sister." Adrian looked at him, his expression unreadable. "You didn't just sell a house," he said softly. "You sold my trust. You made me feel like I didn't matter." His father lowered his head. "I know, and I regret it every day." There was silence again, broken only by the ticking clock on the wall. His mother wiped her tears. "We lost everything, Adrian. Even your sister's business collapsed. We thought money could solve everything, but it only broke us." Adrian took a deep breath. Maybe that's what we all needed to lose something to understand its value. Later that night, after dinner, he went for a walk by the sea. The wind was colder than he remembered. The water shimmered under the moonlight, and for a moment, he closed his eyes and imagined standing on the balcony of his old villa again. That home no longer belonged to him, but the sea, the sound, the rhythm, it still did. It had always been his. He stood there for a long time, thinking about the past year. His revenge had taken everything from them and from himself. He had won, but the victory felt hollow. The distance he created had protected his pride. But it had also built a wall between him and peace. As the waves crashed at his feet, he made a decision. He couldn't keep holding on to this anger. It had controlled him long enough. It was time to let it go, not for them, but for himself. The next morning, he visited the villa. The new owner, a kind woman, allowed him to step inside when she learned he was the previous owner. The house looked different, brighter, full of life and laughter. Children's toys were scattered on the floor. The air smelled of home-cooked food, and sunlight streamed through the windows. Adrian walked to the balcony and looked out at the endless sea. It was the same view he had once loved, but it no longer hurt. For the first time, he smiled. The villa had a new life, and so did he. Before leaving, he placed a small envelope on the table. Inside was a letter for his parents. It read, "I forgive you. Not because it was easy, but because carrying this pain has done nothing but weigh me down. I understand now that you acted out of fear, not cruelty. I don't want revenge anymore. I just want peace for all of us. Let's start over." He signed it simply Adrian. When his parents read the letter later that day, they cried together. It was the first time in years that the house felt warm again. As for Adrian, he stood at the train station watching the town fade into the distance. He didn't know where life would take him next, but he finally felt light. Revenge had given him control, but forgiveness gave him freedom. He whispered to himself, "They took my home, but they can't take my peace." The train moved along the tracks, the sun rising slowly over the sea. And for the first time since everything began, Adrian felt like he was truly moving forward, not with anger, but with peace in his heart, because in the end, he had learned the hardest truth of all. Revenge might make you feel powerful, but forgiveness is what truly sets you free.